In today's beginner chess opening guide video, we're going to be taking a look at the Scandinavian Gambit. I love this gambit. I've been playing it starting out at the age of 7 or 8, and I'm 26 now, and this is a gambit that is super fun for the black side. It starts out with the Scandinavian defense, and if white captures on d5, we're now playing the move of knight to f6. This is the modern variation, or the modern Scandinavian defense. And for those of you that play the modern Scandi or are interested in it, you might be interested in my nearly 12-hour course on the modern Scandi. And that includes a lot of different stuff, including what happens if white doesn't take the pawn. Maybe white's not going to take the pawn on d5. Maybe they're going to play something like e5. Maybe they're going to play the Tennyson Gambit. Maybe they'll go with knight c3 or the Black Mardemer. And then if white takes, we play knight f6. There are a bunch of possibilities here, a bunch of gambits that we can go into, and that is all covered in the course. And I'm giving out a 30% off discount code for that course, only good until the end of April. If you're interested in that, go down the link below, go down the description, plug in the discount code CHESS25, and you will receive 30% off on your purchase. I hope you guys enjoy it. But all right, this line here is something that we cover in the course, and it's against the move c4. Now c4, I don't think it's that great of a move. It is okay for white if white ends up not taking this. I mean, if white plays d4 or something, we can capture back. We're now in a Caro-Kann defense against the Panov attack, but most of the time, the large majority of games, white takes this pawn on c6. And there's two options here that are a lot of fun. Again, I cover this in a lot more depth in the course, but I do want to give you guys kind of just a little sneak peek in terms of how to play this. And by taking on c6, I think practically speaking, this is a really bad idea for white. We can now take with the knight or play the move of pawn to e5, a move that I discovered that is a ton of fun for the black side. You're basically playing a Danish gambit as black, but just way better because this c4 move is very weakening. Why is this so weakening when white plays this and then captures? Well, d4 and d3 are both holes. A hole being a square that the opponent's pawn cannot attack or defend for the rest of the game. And pawns are great defenders because they're expendable, right? For example, if we go knight takes c6, let's just say you have a queen on c3, covering d4, and we throw our knight in. Well, the queen's not a great defender there because the queen's not expendable. You don't want to give up your queen for a knight. But if that was a pawn, yeah, we're not even going to think about putting our knight in there, right? So without a pawn being able to cover that spot, I mean, this is a square that we're really going to go after. Here's what white should do if they want a dead even game, and that's the best thing they can do is a dead even position. That's it. All right, this is a good line for white. One of the options they have: d3 and bishop e2, or bishop e2 and d3, and then here continuing with knight to f3, bishop d2, castling, letting us get the pawn back, playing bishop c3, and now bringing the knight to d2. Okay, we're going to cover this line, and we're going to cover some things that we could see before that as well. But going back to c6, again, if white takes, you can play e5, which we'll cover at the end of this video, or you can capture back with the knight, right? Now, again, white should play very cautiously here and not put the knight out on f3 very early. What if they do, though? Well, we play e5. We're looking to play e4. We're looking to kick that knight around, which is right now the only piece defending d4. But yeah, I mean, we're about to try to kick that knight around. If we see d3, we still play e4. We can take on d1, capture that pawn. I know we're in an endgame now, kind of. I mean, I don't know if this is actually an endgame. But we're approaching that since the queens are off the board and we're down a pawn. However, our activity is way better than white's. We're attacking the weakest pawn in chess, the f pawn. And the engine move here is bishop to e3. In that case, let's play bishop f5. We're looking towards castling queenside with check. And if you play something like bishop to d3, for example, right, looking to trade down, I mean, there's a lot of ways white can mess this position up, but we could castle queenside, or we could take on f2, castle queenside now, go after that bishop. If you want to defend it, we could take, that's fine, but even better is knight to b4, looking to capture back with our knight. I mean, our activity, guys, here is just off the charts. This is great for us. And if we see knight to c3, e5, and again, we are looking towards e4 options in the future, right? There's different things that white can do, but let's just say they throw out the knight. Okay, well, e4 again. This is such a common key idea and theme. Let's say you play knight g5, attacking our pawn. Okay, let's defend it. You want to keep putting more pressure on that pawn? We're not worried about it because we have complete control of, again, that very important d4 square, the most important square in this gambit. The queen's attacked. Do you want to go to e3? Fork. Go back to d1. We could play h6, take your knight, mess up your pawn structure, throw in a check. And, yeah, I mean, here the best thing white can do is take the knight, because if you don't, then queen to d3. So really, in that position there, white shouldn't even take this, right? If they do, they got to give up their queen. So great stuff for black. Let's say we do see the best move of d3 or bishop e2, right? And then d3. We play e5. We play bishop f5. Let's say knight c3 is played here. Okay, not the best option. We play bishop to b4. We are pinning that knight now. If, let's say, knight to f3, good move, apparently, according to the engine, but it's still better for us, e4. Pawn to e4. Kick that knight around. If you do take the pawn, we can capture back with our knight. We're ready to capture back with our rook if white wants to do that. That's a great thing about this gambit, is that you have so much development that if the queen does take your queen, okay, fine, our rook's right there. And let's say bishop to d2, we could take, throw in a knight on d4. You can't even castle here, because we could either take on e2 or take on c3 first, then capture on e2 with check, then take the knight. White's up a pawn, we're up 2 pieces. With e4, if knight h4 here, that's the best move. Bishop e6, drop it back. And if you take it, all right, knight takes d4. Very active here. We're doubling up on that knight. Our rook is ready to, support that queen. And we're also going after that hanging knight on h4. And if knight f3 here, we throw in a check, bishop d2, bishop c5. White shouldn't try to hang on to this. Okay, for example, let's say bishop to g5. Okay, we just keep playing chess. I mean, this is an ugly position for white to play with. I do not want this position as white. All of this pressure, all of this coordination, all of these attacking ideas on the king side. This is terrible. This is just, Anyways, bishop c5. If bishop e3, we can take queen b6, start going after those pawns, right? Start going after those. Knight to g4 is a common theme here, going after that pawn as well. And I end up f2 at the same time. And okay, if white castles, giving up that pawn, let's say they go with bishop c3, we can take on e2, we can castle, and if you decide to take on e5, we can play rook e8, you are up your pawn, but I just feel like at the end of this, if you take on f6, we capture back. White has a very uncomfortable game. Queen c2 is by far the best move for white. Anything else, black has a clear advantage. But we have great development, great activity, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moves here that we could think about. We could think about knight to d4, capturing back with the queen. We could think about bishop to d4. We could think about queen f4. We could look to centralize a rook on d8. This is just an active, fun game for the black side. And if we see knight bd2, which is probably what I would play if I were white there, just not taking the pawn, but just naturally developing, fighting for e4, we just play natural chess. We keep playing from here. But the chances of you seeing your opponent playing perfectly against the Scandinavian Gambit is close to 0. If you look at the stats, it's very rare for white to know what the heck they're doing, because if white knows what they're doing, they're not going to go into this gambit in the first place. When you play c6, right? Most gambits, you want to take a pawn. Usually not 2. Usually you don't want to take 2 pawns and go up 2 pawns in material, but usually taking 1. Usually going up 1 pawn is fine. Not here. And if knight takes c6 wasn't dangerous enough already, when white captures here, we could play the move e5. Now, this move doesn't have a name. I wish it did. I really wish it did. Like, it's a Danish gambit type of idea, getting that e-pawn to take everything, in which case we capture back. But with that pawn on c4, as we've covered, I mean, that really weakens white's position a ton. And if white doesn't want to take the second pawn here and go up 2 pawns, okay, fine. We just capture back with the knight. We're back into our Scandinavian Gambit. We're in a good spot. And if they do take, we capture back with our bishop. Now, white is really on the brink of losing this game, right? Stockfish will sit there and tell you, oh, around an even position. But no, not at all. I mean, it's very hard to play against this. We play something like bishop to c5. You have weaknesses everywhere. You got 2 bishops pouncing down on your f2 and g2 pawns. And let's say we see d3, we can castle kingside. Knight to f3 here. I'm showing you common moves from white. Knight to f3. What do? Knight g4. We're winning. Resignable for white. You play knight e4, we take it. You take back. All right, bishop takes f2 a check. All right, that's one option. You could also take on d1 and, continue from there. I mean, that's probably what I would do. I'd probably capture on d1, take on f2, capture off the rook, crushing for us. Yeah, I mean, this is just completely crushing for us. So again, if you see knight g4 and then knight e4 there, just remove the defender. If you see bishop e3, you can take with your knight, capture back with the bishop, protect that bishop. You can't go to d5 without getting captured off. If you go to a4, all right, queen h6. We're going to continue defending this bishop. That is preventing your king from castling either direction. And how are you going to get rid of that bishop if you're white? I don't know. I mean, we have knight c6, knight d4 ideas here. Beautiful game for us. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you have fun with the Scandinavian Gambit. It is one of the most underrated gambits in all of chess, and it really works well against the move of c4 because that move is so weakening. And again, you got that Chess25 discount code to get 30% off. If you're interested in my nearly 12-hour Scandinavian defense course, only good till the end of April. See y'all in tomorrow's video. To finish out, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon community, specifically Walter, Rob, Steve, Rob, Ray, and Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. Thank you guys for your support. If you haven't checked out the Patreon already, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.